Before we begin, what this book is. This book was written by a man who had given away his own children. Jean-Jacques Rousseau placed all 5 of his newborn infants into the foundling hospital. He did it, he later said, because he was too poor, too sick, too unfit to raise them, and because he believed that the state would raise them better as citizens of the Republic. And yet this same man wrote the greatest book on education in the history of the West. He knew what he had done. He confessed it with shame in his confessions. And in Emile, he tried to imagine what he had not been able to do: to raise a child from birth to manhood according to the laws of nature. The book is a fiction, a thought experiment, a manual. Rousseau takes an imaginary orphan, Emile, and appoints himself as tutor. He removes the child from the city, from the corrupting influence of society, from the chatter of drawing rooms and the vanity of the schools. He raises him in the countryside, alone with nature. He teaches him nothing from books until he is 12. He lets him run. He lets him fall. He lets him discover by his own senses what the world is. He does not preach. He does not punish. He does not lecture. He waits. And at each stage of the child's development, he asks, "What does nature require now?" The infant needs only warmth, milk, and freedom of movement. The child needs only play and the first lessons of necessity. The pre-adolescent needs useful knowledge learned by doing. The adolescent needs the education of the heart, the awakening of pity, the first glimpse of God in the conscience. And the young man needs a companion, Sophie, who has been raised, not as a doll, but as a human being fit to be his equal. Emile was burned. It was condemned. It was the book that made Rousseau the most famous fugitive in Europe, and it changed everything. Pestalozzi read it, Froebel read it, Montessori read it, every progressive school in the West traces some part of its lineage to this one book. It is not a blueprint. It is not a system. It is a vision of what a human being might become if we did not crush him in the name of education. This is Emile, or On Education, by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, 1762. My name is Jamil. You are listening to The Classic Mind. Here, we read the great books the way they were written, line by line, word by word, no summaries, no paraphrases, no one explaining to you what a great book says. The book itself, alive, in my voice. If you are tired of hearing about philosophy and ready to hear philosophy itself, if you are tired of hearing about literature and ready to hear the actual words, you are in the right place. This is not a lecture. This is a reading, a meditation, a sitting in the quiet with my voice that does not hurry. I invite you to close your eyes and let the book speak. This is the classic mind. Let us begin. Emile, or On Education, Preface. This collection of reflections and observations, without order and almost without continuity, was begun to oblige a good mother who knows how to think. I had at first intended only a short treatise. My subject carried me away in spite of myself, and this treatise became a kind of work too large for what it contains, but too small for the subject it treats. I have long hesitated to publish it, and often it has made me feel that having touched on it with some care, is not a sufficient reason for having been able to write it well. My efforts to do better have been useless, but in order to give it up, I told myself I must not publish it. Then, comparing my work to my powers and my subject to my life, I believed I should do well to publish it as it is. If I have sometimes adopted an assertive tone, it was not to impose on the reader, but to speak to him as I think. Why should I propose as doubtful what, for my part, I do not doubt at all? I state exactly what went on in my mind. In declaring my opinion freely, I am so far from believing it authoritative that I always accompany it with my reasons, so that they may be weighed and I be judged. But though I do not wish to be obstinate in defending my ideas, I nonetheless believe it is my duty to propose them, for the maxims from which I differ are maxims I consider extremely harmful. Those who do not share my opinion will not neglect to provide others, and I do not conceive how anyone who presumes to instruct the public could dare to hide his manner of thinking on this point. I know that in enterprises of this kind, an author, always at ease in systems he has dispensed from putting into practice, can without difficulty give many fine precepts impossible to follow, and that, for want of detail and examples, even what is practicable remains without use when its application has not been shown. I have therefore made the decision to give myself an imaginary pupil, to hypothesize that I have the age, the health, the kinds of knowledge, and all the talents suitable for working at his education, for guiding him from the moment of his birth up to the moment when, become a grown man, he no longer needs any guide other than himself. This method seems to me useful for preventing an author who distrusts himself from getting lost in visions. For as soon as he departs from ordinary practice, he need only test his own on his pupil. He will soon feel, or the reader will feel for him, whether he follows the progress of childhood and the movement natural to the human heart. This is what I have tried to do in all the difficulties that have come my way. To keep myself from swelling the book uselessly, I have been content to posit the principles whose truth everyone should be able to see. But as for the rules that might need proof, I have applied them all to my Emile or to other examples, and I have made the details very extensive so that one can judge whether the practice I suggest follows logically from the principles I establish. This is at least the plan I have tried to follow. It is up to the reader to judge whether I have succeeded. Book 1. Everything is good as it leaves the hands of the author of things. Everything degenerates in the hands of man. He forces one land to nourish the productions of another, one tree to bear the fruits of another. He mixes and confuses the climates, the elements, the seasons. He mutilates his dog, his horse, his slave. He overturns everything. He disfigures everything. He loves deformity and monsters. He wants nothing as nature made it, not even man himself. For him, man must be trained like a schoolhorse. Man must be shaped in his own fashion, like a tree in his garden. Without that, things would be even worse, and our species does not admit of being formed halfway. In the present state of things, a man abandoned from birth among others would be the most disfigured of all. Prejudices, authority, necessity, example, all the social institutions in which we find ourselves submerged would smother nature in him and put nothing in its place. Nature there would be like a seedling that chance causes to be born in the middle of a road, and that passers-by soon cause to perish by bumping into it from all sides and bending it in every direction. It is to you, tender and foresighted mother, that I address myself. You who knew how to stay away from the great road and to protect the nascent shrub from the clash of human opinions. Cultivate and water the young plant before it dies. Its fruits will one day be your delights. Form an enclosure around the soul of your child at an early stage. Someone else can trace the circumference, but you alone must build the fence. Plants are shaped by cultivation, and men by education. If man were born big and strong, his size and his strength would be useless to him until he had learned to make use of them. They would be detrimental to him, since they would keep others from thinking of aiding him. And abandoned to himself, he would die of misery before he had known his own needs. We complain of the state of childhood, and we do not see that the human race would have perished if man had not begun as a child. We are born weak. We need strength. We are born destitute of everything. We need assistance. We are born stupid. We need judgment. All that we lack at birth and that we need when we are grown is given us by education. This education comes to us from nature, or from men, or from things. The internal development of our faculties and our organs is the education of nature. The use we are taught to make of this development is the education of men, and what we acquire from our own experience about the objects that affect us is the education of things. Each of us, therefore, is formed by three kinds of masters. The pupil in whom their various lessons conflict is badly raised, and will never be in harmony with himself. He in whom they all coincide in the same points and tend toward the same ends, alone reaches his goal and lives consistently. He alone is well raised. Now, of these three different educations, that of nature does not depend on us. That of things depends on us only in certain respects. That of men is the only one of which we are truly the masters. And even then, we are so only hypothetically. For who can hope to direct entirely the speech and the deeds of all who surround a child? As soon, therefore, as education is an art, it is almost impossible for it to succeed, since the concurrence necessary for its success depends on no one's will. Everything that one can do by dint of care is to approach more or less closely the goal. But for that, one must be lucky enough to attain it. What is this goal? It is the very same as that of nature. This has just been proved. Since the concurrence of the three educations is necessary for their perfection, it is upon the one for which we can do nothing that we must direct the other two. But perhaps the word nature has too vague a sense. An attempt must be made here to settle it. Nature, we are told, is only habit. What does that mean? Are there not habits contracted only by force which never smother nature? Such, for example, is the habit of plants whose vertical direction has been thwarted. Set free, the plant retains the inclination to which it has been forced. But the sap has not, for all that, changed its primitive direction. And as the plant continues to vegetate, its prolongation again becomes vertical. It is the same with the inclinations of men. As long as one remains in the same condition, one can keep those that result from habit and are the least natural to us. But as soon as the situation changes, habit ceases and the natural returns. Education certainly is only habit. Now, are there not people who forget and lose their education? Others who keep it? Whence comes this difference? If the name nature must be restricted to habits conformable to nature, we can spare ourselves this nonsense. We are born sensitive, and from our birth we are affected in various ways by the objects that surround us. As soon as we have, so to speak, the consciousness of our sensations, we are disposed to seek or to avoid the objects that produce them, first according to whether they are agreeable or disagreeable to us, then according to the conformity or lack of it that we find between ourselves and these objects, and finally according to the judgments we make of them on the basis of the idea of happiness or of perfection that reason gives us. These dispositions extend and strengthen in proportion as we become more sensitive and more enlightened. But constrained by our habits, they are more or less corrupted by our opinions. Before this corruption, they are what I call nature in us. It is therefore to these primitive dispositions that everything must be traced back. And this would be possible if our three educations were merely different. But what to do when they are opposed to one another? When instead of educating a man for himself, one wants to educate him for others, then the harmony is impossible. Forced to combat either nature or the social institutions, one must choose between making a man or making a citizen, for one cannot make both at the same time. Every partial society, when it is narrow and well united, becomes detached from the larger one. Every patriot is harsh toward foreigners. They are only men. They are nothing in his eyes. This is an inconvenience, but it is not a great one. The essential thing is to be good to the people with whom one lives. Abroad, the Spartan was ambitious, avaricious, unjust, but disinterestedness, equity, and harmony reigned within his walls. Distrust those cosmopolitans who go to seek afar in their books duties that they disdain to fulfill in their own surroundings. A philosopher loves the Tartars so as to be dispensed from loving his neighbors. The natural man is entirely for himself. He is numerical unity, the absolute whole, which has its relation only to itself or to its like. Civil man is only a fractional unity dependent on the denominator, and whose value lies in its relation to the whole, which is the social body. Good social institutions are those that best know how to denature man, to take away his absolute existence in order to give him a relative one, and to transport the ego into the common unity, so that each private individual no longer thinks himself one, but a part of the unit, and is no longer sensitive except within the whole. A citizen of Rome was neither Caius nor Lucius. He was a Roman. He even loved his country exclusively of himself. Regulus claimed to be Carthaginian as having become the property of his masters. In his capacity as a foreigner, he refused to sit in the Senate of Rome. It took a Carthaginian to command him. He was indignant at the desire to save his life. He conquered and returned triumphant to die by torture. This has much connection, it seems to me, with the men we know. The Lacedaemonian Pedarites presented himself for admission to the Council of the 300. He was rejected. He went home delighted that there were in Sparta 300 men better than himself. I suppose this display was sincere, and there is reason to believe it was. That is the citizen. A Spartan woman had 5 sons in the army and awaited news of the battle. A helot arrives. Trembling, she asks him for news. "Your 5 sons have been killed." "Base slave, did I ask you that?" "We have won the victory." The mother runs to the temple and gives thanks to the gods. That is the female citizen. He who in the civil order wishes to preserve the primacy of the sentiments of nature does not know what he wants, always in contradiction with himself, always floating between his inclinations and his duties. He will never be either man or citizen. He will be good neither for himself nor for others. He will be one of the men of our days, a Frenchman, an Englishman, a bourgeois. He will be nothing. To be something, to be oneself and always one must act as one speaks. One must always be decisive about the course one should take. Take it openly, and always follow it. I am waiting for this prodigy to be shown to me, to know whether he is a man or a citizen, or how he goes about being both at once. From these necessarily opposed objects come 2 contrary forms of education. The one public and common, the other individual and domestic. Do you want to get an idea of public education? Read Plato's Republic. It is not a work on politics, as those who judge only by titles imagine. It is the most beautiful treatise on education ever written. When one wishes to refer to the land of chimeras, one names Plato's institution. If Lycurgus had merely set his down in writing, I would find it far more chimerical. Plato did nothing but purify the heart of man. Lycurgus denatured it. Public education no longer exists, and can no longer exist, because where there is no longer a fatherland, there can no longer be citizens. These 2 words, fatherland and citizen, should be effaced from modern languages. I well know the reason why, but I do not want to state it. It is irrelevant to my subject. That ridiculous institution called a college, I do not consider a public education. Nor do I count the education of society, because this education, tending toward 2 contrary ends, misses both. It is fit only for making double men who always seem to refer everything to others and never to refer anything to themselves but for money. These demonstrations are universal, and they make no one see anything. It would be wasting time to amuse oneself by probing more deeply into them. What we have to deal with here is domestic education, or the education of nature. What will a man raised uniquely for himself become for others, if perchance the 2-fold object one sets for oneself could be joined into a single one by removing the contradictions of man? A great obstacle to his happiness would be removed. To judge of it, one would have to see him fully formed. One would have to have observed his inclinations, seen his progress, followed his career. In a word, one would have to know the natural man. I believe that after having read this work, some steps will have been taken in this research. To form this rare man, what must we do? Very much, no doubt, prevent anything from being done when it is only a matter of going against the wind, one tacks. But if the sea is too heavy and one wants to stay in place, one must cast anchor. Take care, young pilot, that your cable does not run, or that your anchor does not drag. In the social order, where all places are marked, each man must be educated for his own. If an individual formed for his station departs from it, he is no longer good for anything. Education is useful only to the extent that the fortune of the parents accords with the station. In any other case, it is harmful to the pupil, if only through the prejudices it gives him. In Egypt, where the son was obliged to embrace the station of his father, education at least had an assured goal. But among us, where only the ranks remain, and the men change them constantly, no one knows whether by educating his son for his own station, he is not working against him. In the order of nature, men all being equal, their common vocation is the estate of man, and whoever is well raised for that cannot badly fulfill the ones that relate to it. Whether my pupil be destined for the sword, the church, or the bar, is of little concern to me. Before the vocation of his parents, nature calls him to human life. To live is the trade I wish to teach him. On leaving my hands, I admit he will be neither magistrate, nor soldier, nor priest. He will be first a man. All that a man should be, he will know how to be in case of need, as well as anyone. And though fortune may try to make him change his station, he will always be in his own. Our true study is that of the human condition. He among us who best knows how to bear the goods and the ills of this life is, to my taste, the best raised. From which it follows that the true education consists less in precepts than in exercises. We begin to instruct ourselves when we begin to live. Our education begins with us. Our first master is our nurse. Also, the word education was applied among the ancients to something different from what we attach to it. Educit obstetrix, says Varro. Educat nutrix, instituit pedagogus, docet magister. Thus, education, institution, instruction are three things as different in their object as governess, preceptor, and master. But these distinctions are badly understood, and for the child to be well guided, he should follow only a single guide. We must therefore generalize our views and consider in our pupil the abstract man, the man exposed to all the accidents of human life. If men were born attached to the soil of a country, if the same season lasted the whole year, if each man's fortune were so fixed that it could never change, the established practice would be good in certain respects. The child raised for his station, never leaving it, could not be exposed to the inconveniences of another. But given the mobility of human things, given the restless and shifting spirit of this century, which overturns everything in each generation, can one conceive a more senseless method than to raise a child as though he would never have to do anything but what he does, and as though he would be out of his element if he departs from his condition? If the unfortunate man takes a single step on the earth, he is lost. We do not teach the child to endure hardship. We teach him to feel it. We break his spirit, and after having enslaved him to our whims, we abandon him to the prejudices of opinion. Book 2. We have now passed through the period of infancy. The child begins to live. He becomes himself. He has sensations. He is developing. His strength grows. He begins to be a moral being. The first stage of childhood is the age of nature. The child has no prejudices, no settled habits. He has only the need to grow and to play. He must be allowed to do both. Do not rush to judge him. Do not hurry to instruct him. Let nature be his only teacher for a time. It is here that the real education of the senses begins. Before the age of reason, the child does not think but feels. He receives impressions. He does not form ideas. He has only sensations. He cannot yet compare them, but he can distinguish them. The first development of the senses is the first development of the understanding. The child wants to touch everything, to handle everything. Do not oppose this restlessness. It is a very necessary apprenticeship. It is thus that he learns to feel the heat and the cold, the hardness and the softness, the heaviness and lightness of bodies, to judge their size, their shape, and all their sensible qualities by looking, by feeling, by listening, especially by comparing sight to touch, and by compensating with one sense the errors of another. If he breaks something, do not be angry. The broken object is a lesson. Let him feel the inconvenience of his act. Let him suffer the cold when he has broken the window, rather than being scolded for breaking it. He will learn prudence from the nature of things, and not from your arbitrary will. It is very strange that since people take so much trouble to instruct children in so many things, they never think of training them in the most necessary of all, to know how to use their senses. Our first masters of philosophy are our feet, our hands, our eyes. To substitute books for all that is not to teach us to reason, it is to teach us to use the reason of others. It is to teach us to believe much and to know nothing. To exercise the senses is not only to make use of them, it is to learn to judge well by means of them. It is to learn, so to speak, to feel. For we do not know how to feel or to see except as we have learned. There is a purely passive physical impression. There is an active moral judgment. The eye does not see the size of an object. It sees only the image painted on the retina. To judge the size, one must compare the image with the distance, and the distance must be sought by the understanding. Thus the understanding comes to the aid of the senses, and the child who has only sensation does not yet know how to judge. Therefore he must be exercised not only in sensing, but in judging the relations of sensations. He must be taught to see correctly, to hear correctly, to touch correctly. He must be given nothing but things and not their signs. The sign absorbs the child's attention and makes him forget the thing represented. Do not give him lessons in geometry. Let him discover it himself. Do not give him rules of perspective. Let him find them himself. Do not give him weights and measures. Let him estimate them himself. He will be wrong. Let him be wrong. It is better that he make his own mistakes than that he repeat your truths without understanding them. The first natural movement of every man is to measure himself against all that surrounds him, and to experience in each object he perceives all the sensible qualities that can relate to himself. Thus, the child's first study is a sort of experimental physics relative to his own preservation, from which he is turned away by speculative studies before he has recognized his place here below. As long as his delicate and flexible organs can adjust themselves to the bodies on which they must act, as long as his senses, still pure, are free of illusion, it is time to exercise them all in their proper functions. It is time to learn to know the sensible relations that things have with us. Since everything that enters into human understanding comes there through the senses, the first reason of man is a reason of the senses. It is this that serves as the basis for the intellectual reason. Our first masters of philosophy are our feet, our hands, our eyes. I shall not tire of repeating it. Put all the lessons of young children into actions rather than into discourses. Let them learn nothing from books that experience can teach them. What a madness to exercise them in speaking when they have nothing to say. To make them display on school benches the eloquence of Cicero, while they do not know how to express their own needs. For my pupil, I want him to have no other book for a long time than the world itself, no other instruction than facts. The child who reads does not think. He does nothing but read. He is not learning. He is learning words. Teach your pupil the art of being ignorant. For the knowledge of those who know only what they have learned is never sure. It is better to know nothing than to believe one knows what one does not. Do not treat the child with long discourses that he cannot understand. No arguments, no sermons, no verbal lessons. He must receive his lessons only from experience. Do not inflict any kind of punishment on him, for he does not know what it is to be at fault. Never make him beg your pardon, for he cannot offend you. His morality is entirely in his actions. He does not know what moral relations are. Thus he cannot do anything that is morally bad, and he deserves neither punishment nor reprimand. Already I see the frightened reader judging this child by those around us. He is mistaken. The perpetual constraint in which you hold your pupils irritates their vivacity. The more constrained they are in your presence, the more tumultuous they are the moment they escape you. They must of necessity be compensated when they can for the harsh constraint in which you hold them. 2 schoolboys from the city will do more damage in a field than all the children of an entire village. Locke, the wise Locke, who himself lived as a child, wants them to play with dice to learn mathematics. I would rather have them play at learning to see, to touch, to listen, and to judge bodies than at learning the relations of numbers. The knowledge of numbers is too abstract for childhood. They can learn to reason about quantities only when they already know how to reason about bodies. Do not confuse the child with the man. The child is not a man in miniature. He is a child with his own ways of seeing, of thinking, of feeling. Nature wants children to be children before being men. If we want to pervert this order, we shall produce precocious fruits that will have neither maturity nor taste and will soon be spoiled. Childhood has its own ways of seeing, thinking, and feeling. Nothing is more foolish than to substitute our own for them. Let the child act. Let him run, let him jump, let him shout. He is developing the organs that will one day serve his reason. But take care that he does not become the master of your will. Let him always believe that it is nature and not you who resists him. Never command him, whatever it may be. Do not even let him imagine that you pretend to have any authority over him. Let him know only that he is weak and that you are strong, that by his condition and yours, he is necessarily at your mercy. Let him know it. Let him learn it. Let him feel it. Let him early feel on his proud head the hard yoke that nature imposes on man, the heavy yoke of necessity under which every finite being must bend. Let him see this necessity in things, never in the caprice of men. Let the bridle that restrains him be force, not authority. Do not forbid him to do wrong, merely prevent him from doing it. Experience or lack of power must be the only law for him. The child raised according to these maxims will not be annoying, importunate, or turbulent. He will not demand that others abandon their affairs to occupy themselves with him. He will be patient, steady, calm, even in the midst of his joys, because he is free, because he is master of himself, and because he is not governed by the whims of others. To reason with children was Locke's great maxim, and it is the one most in fashion today. Nevertheless, its success does not seem to me to merit its reputation. For my part, I see nothing more stupid than these children who have been reasoned with so much. Of all the faculties of man, reason, which is, so to speak, only a composite of all the others, is the one that develops with the most difficulty and the latest. And it is this one they want to use to develop the first ones. The masterpiece of a good education is to make a reasonable man, and they claim to raise a child by reason. That is to begin with the end, to want to make the work into the product. If children understood reason, they would not need to be raised, but by speaking to them from their earliest age. In a language they do not understand, you accustom them to pay off with words, to criticize everything people say to them, to believe themselves as wise as their masters, to become disputatious and rebellious. And everything you think you are getting from them from a reasonable motive is never obtained except from the motives of covetousness or fear or vanity, which you are obliged to join to it. Here is the formula to which all the education of the child can be reduced. He wants to touch everything, to handle everything. Do not oppose this restlessness. It is a very necessary apprenticeship. It is thus that he learns to feel the heat and the cold, the hardness and the softness, the heaviness and the lightness of bodies. It is thus that he learns the size, the shape, and all the sensible qualities by looking, by touching, by listening, especially by comparing sight and touch, by substituting, in the judgment of sight, the second sense for the first. It is only by movement that we learn that there are things that are not us, and it is only by our own movement that we acquire the idea of extension. Because the child does not have this idea, he stretches out his hand indifferently to grasp the object that is near him, or the object that is 3 feet away. The effort he makes serves only as a sign to his nurse, who takes him or who brings the object to him. But if, instead of carrying him or bringing the object, one moves the object slowly before his eyes, he follows it. He stretches out his hand. He cries. He wants to seize it. What he thus acquires is not the judgment of distance, but the feeling that things exist beyond his reach. It is at this time that we must begin to exercise his strength and his skill. The child, as soon as he begins to walk, must be allowed to wander freely. He must be allowed to fall, to hurt himself, to learn by his own experience the limits of his strength and the resistance of bodies. Do not think of preventing him from doing anything that does not involve real danger. He must learn to suffer what he cannot avoid. He must learn early to feel pain, to bear it without complaint. This is the first apprenticeship of courage. The more you protect him from slight pains, the more you expose him to great ones. The child who has never wept is a child who has never lived. Let us lay it down as an incontestable maxim that the first movements of nature are always right. There is no original perversity in the human heart. There is not a single vice in it of which one cannot say how and whence it entered. The only passion natural to man is love of self, or self-love taken in an extended sense. This self-love in itself, or relative to us, is good and useful. And since it has no necessary relation to others, it is in this respect naturally indifferent. It becomes good or bad only by the application one makes of it and the relations one gives it. Until the guide of self-love, which is reason, can be born, it is important that a child do nothing because he is seen or heard, nothing because of his relations with others, but only what nature asks of him. Then he will do only good. By the law of nature, man is not the enemy of man. It is not the depravity of men that makes them unhappy. It is their error. The more unhappy we are, the more our needs exceed our power. The only thing that makes man unhappy is the disproportion between his desires and his faculties. Take away from the heart of man the desires that do not belong to his nature, and you take away all his miseries. The real world has its limits. The imaginary world is infinite. Unable to enlarge the one, let us restrict the other, for it is from their difference alone that all the pains that make us truly unhappy arise. A man who would want only what he can do, and would do what he pleases, would be supremely happy. This is the state of man in the pure state of nature. But the more we increase our desires, the more we multiply our dependence. It is this dependence on men, born of our dependence on things, that engenders all our vices. Let us therefore keep the child dependent only on things. In this way, he will not feel the yoke of necessity. He will yield only to the force of things, and not to the arbitrary will of men. Do not give your pupil any kind of verbal lesson. He should receive them only from experience. Inflict no kind of punishment on him, for he does not know what it is to be at fault. Never make him beg your pardon, for he cannot offend you. Devoid of all morality in his actions, he cannot do anything that is morally bad, and deserves neither punishment nor reproof. Already I see the frightened reader judging this child by those around us. He is mistaken. The perpetual constraint in which you hold your pupils irritates their vivacity. The more constrained they are in your presence, the more tumultuous they are. The moment they escape you. The only moral lesson that suits childhood, and the most important for every age, is never to harm anyone. Even the precept of doing good, if it is not subordinated to this one, is dangerous, false, and contradictory. Who is it who does not do good? Everyone does good, the wicked as well as others. He makes one happy at the expense of 100 wretches, and from this comes all our calamities. The most sublime virtues are negative. They are also the most difficult, because they are without ostentation, and above that pleasure so sweet to the human heart of making another pleased with us. Oh, what good his fellow man inevitably receive from the man who has never done them harm. And what an intrepid heart he must have. The child must be given nothing, absolutely nothing, because he demands it, but because he needs it. He must not act out of obedience, but only out of necessity. Thus the words obey and command will be proscribed from his dictionary. And still more, the words duty and obligation. But the words force, necessity, weakness, and constraint must play a great role. Before the age of reason, the child receives not ideas, but images. The only difference is that images are only absolute depictions of sensible objects, while ideas are notions of objects determined by relations. An image can exist alone in the mind that represents it, but every idea supposes others. When one imagines, one does nothing but see. When one conceives, one compares. Our sensations are purely passive, while all our perceptions or ideas are born from an active principle that judges. Thus, the child who does not yet reason does not have real ideas. He has only images. The difference is that his images are only the paintings of sensible objects, without any relation between them. We think neither of their causes, nor of their effects, nor of the generalities that surround them. The child has not even an idea of existence, for being and nothing are terms that suppose abstract operations of the understanding. Since everything that enters into human understanding comes there through the senses, the first reason of man is a reason of the senses. It is this that serves as the basis for the intellectual reason. Our first masters of philosophy are our feet, our hands, our eyes. To substitute books for all that is not to teach us to reason. It is to teach us to use the reason of others. It is to teach us to believe much and to know nothing. To exercise the senses is not only to make use of them, it is to learn to judge well by means of them. It is to learn, so to speak, to feel. For we do not know how to feel or to see except as we have learned. There is a purely passive physical impression. There is an active moral judgment. The eye does not see the size of an object. It sees only the image painted on the retina. To judge the size, one must compare the image with the distance, and the distance must be sought by the understanding. Thus the understanding comes to the aid of the senses, and the child who has only sensation does not yet know how to judge. Therefore he must be exercised not only in sensing, but in judging the relations of sensations. He must be taught to see correctly, to hear correctly, to touch correctly. He must be given nothing but things and not their signs. The sign absorbs the child's attention, and makes him forget the thing represented. There is a purely natural and mechanical exercise that serves to strengthen the body without giving any hold on the judgment. Swimming, running, jumping, spinning tops, throwing stones. All this is very good. But do we have only arms and legs? Do we not also have eyes and ears? And are these organs superfluous for the use of the first ones? Therefore exercise not only the forces, but all the senses that direct them. Extract from each sense the greatest possible profit, and check the impressions of one against the other. Measure, count, weigh, compare. Use force only after having calculated the resistance. Always arrange the effect precede the effort. Always take care that the child does not do things beyond his reach, but only what he can do. Make him attentive to the measure of his strength, to the nature of the obstacles he must overcome, to the kind of instrument he uses, etc. To learn to think, we must therefore exercise our members, our senses, our organs, which are the instruments of our intelligence. And to get the most possible profit from these instruments, the body that supplies them must be robust and healthy. Thus, far from true reason being formed independently of the body, it is good bodily constitution that makes the operations of the mind easy and sure. In showing the child how to use his natural instruments, you prepare the work of reason. You give him the art of being wise when he comes of age. You do not give him the science of morals, but the art of acquiring it. The only habit that the child should be allowed is the habit of contracting no habit. Let him not be carried more on one arm than on the other. Let him not be accustomed to presenting one hand rather than the other, to eating, sleeping, acting at the same hours, to not being able to remain alone night or day. Prepare from afar the reign of his liberty and the use of his forces by leaving to his body its natural habits, by putting him in a condition always to be master of himself, and to do his own will in all things as soon as he has one. As soon as the child begins to distinguish objects, it is important to make a choice in what is shown to him. Naturally, everything that is new interests him. He wants to see it, to touch it, to taste it. But do not hurry to satisfy this curiosity. It is good to let him desire something, to let him seek it, to let him take trouble. It is in this way that the child learns to make efforts, to overcome obstacles, and to develop his body. But there is another principle that must be observed. When the child begins to speak, he must be allowed to speak only to express his real needs. Do not let him chatter for the sake of chattering. Do not let him ask questions from a vain curiosity, but only from a real desire to learn. When you see that the child asks only to ask, and that his questions are only an amusement, do not answer them. He does not need to know the answer. He only wants to occupy you. Then you must distract him and not answer him, or else give him an answer so simple that he will not understand it, and he will ask no more. But when you see that he asks because he truly wants to know, answer him simply, clearly, without false mystery, without a mocking smile. It is better to tell him that you do not know than to give him a false answer. The child who has received false answers will soon distrust his masters and will learn the art of lying. The first sense that is developed in the child is touch. It is the most fundamental, the one that teaches him the existence of external objects. It is by touch that he learns that there are things outside himself. It is by touch that he learns the first qualities of bodies: heat and cold, hardness and softness, heaviness and lightness. The second sense is sight, but sight is the most deceptive of all the senses, precisely because it is the most far-reaching, and because its operations are so rapid that the mind does not have time to correct them. The child must learn to judge by sight only with the help of touch. He must verify by touch what he sees. He must compare the two senses and learn to correct the errors of one by the other. It is by walking, by moving, by touching, that the child learns the idea of space, of distance, of size. The child who has never moved has no idea of extension. He must be allowed to walk, to run, to jump, to climb. He must be allowed to fall. He will learn to get up. The third sense is hearing. The child must learn to judge sounds, to distinguish them, to compare them. He must learn to sing, not to become a musician, but to develop his ear, to make his voice supple, accurate, and to make him feel the rhythms and the harmonies. Do not give him formal lessons in music. Let him sing as he plays. Let him sing simple airs with words that he can understand. Let him sing for his own pleasure and not to display his talent. The child who sings for himself sings better than the one who sings for others. His ear becomes exact. His voice becomes true. His taste becomes pure. The fourth sense is taste. The child is naturally a glutton, because taste is the only sense that is directly linked to his preservation. He must be allowed to follow his natural tastes, provided they are not corrupted by art. Give him simple foods, milk, fruits, vegetables, bread. Do not give him spiced dishes, or rich sauces, or meat that has been prepared with too much art. Let him eat when he is hungry, and drink when he is thirsty, or to finish what is on his plate. Let him regulate his appetite by nature, and not by your rules. The fifth sense is smell. This sense is not very developed in children, and it is useless to try to exercise it separately. It will develop on its own as the child grows. But one thing must be observed. Do not accustom the child to strong perfumes, to artificial odors. These things corrupt the sense of smell and make it incapable of distinguishing the delicate odors of nature. All these exercises must be nothing but games. The child must not feel that he is being instructed. He must learn by playing, by acting, by living. The best education is that which does not appear to be an education. If you want to teach him geometry, do not give him a book. Do not make him draw figures on paper. Take him for a walk in the fields. Show him a tree, a rock, a stream. Ask him to measure the height of the tree, the distance to the rock, the width of the stream. He will learn geometry without knowing that he is learning it. If you want to teach him astronomy, do not show him a map of the sky. Take him outside at night. Let him see the stars, the moon, the planets. Let him ask you questions. Answer simply, without giving him lessons. Let him discover the movements of the stars by himself. He will learn more in one night than in a month of reading. The education of the body is inseparable from the education of the mind. The child must be strong and healthy if he is to become wise and good. He must be hardened against the cold, against the heat, against fatigue. He must be able to sleep on the ground, to eat coarse food, to walk long distances, to bear pain without complaint. Do not raise your child in a warm room with soft beds and delicate foods. Take him outside in all weather. Let him run barefoot in the grass. Let him swim in cold water. Let him climb trees and rocks. He will become robust, agile, and fearless. And this strength of body will give him strength of soul. The child must learn to swim. Swimming is not only a useful skill, it is an exercise that develops the whole body, that gives confidence, that teaches courage. Let the child be placed in water from an early age. Let him learn to move in it, to float, to dive. Let him learn to cross a stream, to rescue someone who is drowning, to be master of the water as he is master of the land. The child must also learn to jump, to run, to climb, to throw. All these exercises are games, but they are games that prepare him for life. The child who has learned to jump a ditch will not be stopped by an obstacle. The child who has learned to climb a tree will not be afraid of heights. The child who has learned to throw a stone will have a sure eye and a steady hand. Do not hurry the child's development. Let him remain a child as long as possible. The more time he spends in the age of nature, the better prepared he will be for the age of reason. The child who is forced to become a man before his time becomes neither a child nor a man. He becomes a monster without strength of body or wisdom of mind. Nature has its own rhythm. The child must crawl before he walks, walk before he runs, run before he reasons. If you reverse this order, you will produce a precocious fruit that has no taste and that will not last. Although the whole course of life up to adolescence is a period of weakness, there is a point during this early age when, though the child's strength has increased beyond his needs, his relative power is greater than it will ever be again. His needs have not yet fully developed. His organs are forming. His strength is growing faster than his desires. This is the time of his greatest relative strength. What then should he do with this surplus of faculties and strength, which is superfluous to him at present, but which he will need later? He must invest it. He must store it up. He must use it to prepare for the future. The child must not hoard his strength. He must expend it, but in such a way that it will return to him with interest. The whole period of childhood has been a time of play and physical exercise. Now we enter the period of utility. The child must learn what is useful to him, but he must learn it not through books, not through abstract lessons, but through his own experience, his own judgment, his own discoveries. This is the time for teaching, but not the time for formal lessons. The child must still learn through things, not through words. He must still be guided by necessity, not by authority. But the necessity that guides him now is not the immediate physical necessity of his own body. It is the necessity of understanding the world around him. of mastering the forces that affect his life, of becoming capable and competent. He asks, "What is this for? Why is this so? How does this work?" And we must answer him not with speeches, but with demonstrations. We must let him discover. I have said it 100 times. The child must read only one book. That book is Robinson Crusoe. Robinson Crusoe on his island, alone, deprived of the assistance of his kind and of all the instruments of the arts, yet providing for his subsistence, for his preservation, and even procuring for himself a kind of well-being. This is an object interesting for every age, and one that can be made agreeable to children in 1,000 ways. Here is how we realize the desert island that served me at first as a comparison. This state is not, I admit, that of social man, but it is the state from which Emile will learn to judge all others. The surest way to raise oneself above the prejudices and to order one's judgments according to the true relations of things is to put oneself in the place of a man isolated, and to judge everything as this man himself must judge of it, in relation to his own utility. Thus, this novel, stripped of its superfluities, beginning with Robinson's shipwreck near his island, and ending with the arrival of the ship that comes to take him away, will be both the recreation and the instruction of Emile during the whole period in question. I want his head to be filled with it constantly. I want him always to be busy with his castle, his goats, his plantations. I want him to learn in detail, not from books, but from things, all that one must know in such a situation. I want him to think he is Robinson himself, to see himself dressed in skins, wearing a large cap, carrying a great saber, and all the grotesque equipment of the figure, except the parasol, which he will not need. I want him to worry about the measures to take, if this or that should be lacking to him, to examine the conduct of his hero, to seek whether he omitted anything, whether there was nothing better to do, to note Robinson's errors attentively, and to profit from them so as not to fall into them himself in such a situation. For do not doubt that he will plan to build himself a similar establishment. This is the true castle in Spain of this happy age, when one knows no other happiness than the necessary and the free. What a resource this folly is for a skilled man, who has known how to engender it in his pupil only to draw profit from it. The child, in a hurry to set up a storehouse for his island, will be more eager to learn than his master will be to teach. He will want to know everything that is useful, and he will want to know only that. You will no longer need to guide him. You will need only to restrain him. Let us therefore hurry to establish him on this island, while he still limits his happiness to it. For the day is approaching when, if he still wants to live there, he will no longer want to live there alone, and when Friday, who now hardly concerns him, will no longer suffice for him. The child must have a trade. He must know how to work with his hands. He must know how to earn his bread. Not because he will need to earn it, for his tutor will provide for him, but because he must know what labor is, what it costs, what it is worth. He must respect the man who works, and he must know how to work himself, if fortune should ever turn against him. The trade I would choose for him, among all the trades that I could choose, would be that of carpenter. It is clean, it is useful, it can be exercised in the house, it demands enough skill without demanding too much. It keeps the body sufficiently active without requiring too much force. It requires attention and exactitude, but not genius. It is a trade that is neither too sedentary nor too laborious. It is a trade that makes a man useful to himself and to others, and which, if he were reduced to his own resources, would enable him to subsist in any country in the world. Once a week, therefore, the master and the pupil will go together to a carpenter's workshop. They will not go there as gentlemen to watch others work. They will go there as apprentices to work with their own hands. They will learn to plane, to saw, to mortise, to dovetail. They will make simple objects, a stool, a table, a box, and the child will learn in making them the value of the things he uses every day. He will no longer break a chair without knowing what it costs to repair it. He will no longer despise the man who makes it. He will know that every object that serves his convenience is the fruit of someone's labor, and that labor deserves respect. But it is not enough to teach the child a trade. He must also learn the sciences that are useful to him. And here, as everywhere, he must learn them not from books, but from his own experience. How do we teach physics? By experiments. How do we teach geography? By walking, by observing the sun, by following a stream from its source to its mouth. How do we teach astronomy? By watching the stars at night, by observing the phases of the moon, by marking the solstices and the equinoxes. The child must not be told that the earth is round. He must discover it. He must not be told that the sun is larger than the earth. He must be led to see it. He must not be given the principles of mechanics. He must be placed in situations where he must invent them for himself. If he wants to move a heavy stone, he will discover the lever. If he wants to raise water from a stream, he will discover the pump. If he wants to build a bridge, he will discover the arch. The master's art consists in presenting problems to the child, and in letting him solve them himself. The master does not teach, he guides. He does not give answers, he asks questions. He does not show the child what to do, he puts him in the way of discovering it. This is the age of utility. The child asks, "What if this for?" And he must be answered honestly. He must be shown the use of what he learns. If you teach him something that has no use, he will despise it, and he will be right. For at this age, he learns only what he needs. He learns only what serves his preservation, his well-being, his future. But be careful not to mistake his needs. The child does not need to know Latin or Greek. He does not need to know the history of kings and battles. He does not need to know the fables of the poets. He needs to know the world around him. The earth, the sky, the water, the fire, the plants, the animals, the stones. He needs to know how to measure, how to weigh, how to calculate. He needs to know how to build, how to repair, how to make. These are the things that are useful to him. These are the things that will prepare him for the age of reason, when he will need to judge men and morals. The child must also learn to draw. not to become an artist, but to develop his eye and his hand. He must learn to draw from nature, not from drawings. He must draw a house, a tree, a man, as he sees them, and not as others have drawn them. He must learn to see correctly and to render what he sees with fidelity. This exercise will make his eye precise, his hand sure, and his judgment exact. He must also learn music, not the music of the opera, but simple songs, folk melodies, the rhythms of the dance. He must learn to sing in tune, to keep time, to feel the harmony. Music is the language of the heart, and the child who learns to sing learns to feel. But above all, the child must learn to be happy with what he has. He must learn to limit his desires to his real needs. He must learn that happiness does not consist in having more, but in needing less. The man who needs nothing is the freest of men. The child who is content with little is the happiest of children. Do not give him everything he asks for. Give him only what he needs. Do not surround him with luxuries. Let him live simply, eat simply, dress simply. The more artificial his needs become, the more dependent he will be on others, and the less free he will be. The child who has learned to do without the superfluities of life has learned the most useful of all arts. He has learned to be free. The child must learn to judge the value of things. He must learn to compare the useful and the useless, the necessary and the superfluous, the real and the apparent. He must learn that what is rare is not always precious, that what glitters is not always gold, that what is praised by the multitude is not always worthy of praise. But he must learn these truths not from moral lectures, but from his own experience. Let him be deceived by appearances. He will learn to distrust them. Let him desire something that is beyond his reach. He will learn to limit his desires. Let him suffer the consequences of a bad choice. He will learn to choose better next time. The child must not be taught the sciences. He must discover them. He must not be told what others have found. He must find for himself. He must not learn the results. He must learn the method. For the method is everything. The man who has learned to think can learn any science. The man who has only memorized the results of science knows nothing at all. We have begun with the study of nature, because nature is the first book, the only book that speaks directly to the senses, the only book that never lies. What is the earth? What is the sun? What are the stars? What is the air we breathe? What is the water we drink? What is the fire that warms us? These are the questions that the child asks, and these are the questions that we must help him to answer. We walk together in the fields. We watch the sun rise and set. We observe the phases of the moon. We follow the course of a stream from its source to the point where it joins the river. We dig in the earth to see the layers of soil and rock. We collect plants, stones, insects. We watch the birds build their nests, the ants carry their burdens, the spiders weave their webs. Everything we see becomes the subject of a conversation. But these conversations are never lectures. They are inquiries. The child asks a question. I do not answer it. I ask him what he thinks. He gives his opinion. I ask him how he knows. He realizes that he does not know. And then we seek the answer together. The child must learn to use instruments. He must learn to measure distances, to weigh objects, to calculate volumes. He must learn to read a map, to use a compass, to tell the time by the sun. He must learn the principles of mechanics, not from books, but from machines. Let him examine a mill, a pump, a clock. Let him take them apart and put them back together. Let him understand how the parts work together, how the motion is transmitted, how the force is multiplied. He must learn the principles of optics, not from diagrams, but from lenses. Let him play with a magnifying glass, with a prism, with a mirror. Let him see how the light is bent, how the colors are separated, how the image is reversed. He must learn the principles of astronomy, not from globes and orreries, but from the sky itself. Let him watch the stars for a whole night. Let him see how they turn around the pole. Let him mark the path of the planets. Let him observe the eclipses of the moon. He will learn more in a single night than in a year of study. For the sky is the grandest spectacle that the human eye can contemplate. And the child who has learned to read the sky will never be entirely ignorant of anything. But there are limits to what the child can learn. He cannot learn everything. He cannot even learn very much. The span of his attention is short. The reach of his understanding is narrow. He must learn only what is within his grasp, only what is useful to him, only what he can understand by himself. Do not try to teach him metaphysics. He will not understand it. Do not try to teach him theology. He is not ready for it. Do not try to teach him the history of nations. He cannot comprehend the causes of events, the play of interests, the clash of passions. He can understand only what he can see, only what he can touch, only what he can verify by his own senses. Everything else is beyond him, and it is a mistake to try to extend his knowledge beyond the limits of his age. The child is not a philosopher. He is not a theologian. He is not a historian. He is a child. And the child's proper study is nature and the arts that serve his needs and the tools that extend his power. At 15, the child has reached the end of the second age. He is no longer a child. He is an adolescent. His body is formed. His senses are developed. His reason is beginning to dawn. He has learned what is useful. He knows how to judge the things around him by their true value. But he does not yet know himself. He does not yet know his place in the world. He does not yet know the passions that will soon awaken in him. He does not yet know the moral relations that bind him to his fellow men. All this remains to be learned, and it will be the work of the next age. But what have we accomplished so far? We have raised a child who is healthy, robust, agile, and fearless. He has learned to use his senses and his body. He has learned to judge the physical world around him. He has learned a trade that will make him independent. He has learned to be content with little, to despise luxury, to love simplicity. He has not learned, but he is capable of learning. He does not know many things, but he knows how to find out. He is not a prodigy, but he is a child who has been raised according to nature. and nature never produces prodigies. Nature produces healthy, happy, well-formed beings who are ready to live. The child who has been raised in this way has not been spoiled by the opinions of men. He has not been corrupted by the prejudices of society. He has not been enslaved by the artificial needs that make men miserable. He is free as a human being can be, because he has learned to limit his desires to his powers. And now, on the threshold of adolescence, he is ready for the second birth, the birth of the passions, the birth of the moral sense, the birth of the social being. Book 4. How swiftly life passes here below. The first quarter of it is gone before we know what to do with it, and the last quarter is spent without the capacity to enjoy it. At first, we do not know how to live. Soon, we are no longer capable of it. And in the interval that separates these two useless extremes, 3/4 of the time that remains is consumed by sleep, by labor, by pain, by constraint, by troubles of every kind. Life is short, less by the short time it lasts. Then, because of that short time, almost none is left for us to enjoy it. Distant as the moment of death is from that of birth, life is always too short when this space is badly filled. Man is born twice, once to exist and once to live, once for the species and once for the sex. Those who regard woman as an imperfect man are surely wrong. She has her own nature, her own needs, her own virtues. But it is not of woman that I must speak here, it is of man. We are, so to speak, born twice, once to exist and once to live, once for the species and once for the sex. To consider the age of puberty simply as a physical change is to miss its deeper meaning. It is then that man is truly born to life, and that nothing human is foreign to him. Until now, our care has been nothing but a game. It takes on true importance only at present. This period, where ordinary education ends, is properly the one where ours must begin. But to set forth this new plan well, let us go back to the state of things that relate to it. Our passions are the principal instruments of our preservation. It is therefore an enterprise as vain as it is ridiculous to want to destroy them. It is God Himself who gives them to us. To want to destroy them would be to want to reform the work of God. But He who has given us passions to make us live has also given us reason to govern them. Without reason, the passions would be blind. Without passions, reason would be idle. The one is the pilot, the other is the wind. It is only when the fire of life begins to burn more intensely that the soul becomes truly active. Until then, the child loves only himself. This love is necessary, inevitable, and good. But as soon as he begins to feel his relations with other beings, he acquires the sentiments that bind him to his kind. He becomes sensitive to moral good and evil. He becomes a man. This is the moment when the second education begins. The first education was purely negative. It consisted not in teaching virtue and truth, but in preserving the heart from vice and the mind from error. The second education is positive. It consists in forming the heart and in enlightening the mind. Our passions are the principal instruments of our preservation. The passions that attract us to what is useful to us and repel us from what is harmful to us are given to us by nature as the safeguards of our being. But these same passions, when they are not regulated by reason, become the source of all our miseries. The first passion, the most natural, the most sacred, is the love of oneself. But this love of oneself, which is good in itself, becomes pride when it extends to others, and when we compare ourselves to them. The love of oneself concerns only our own preservation. Pride concerns our relative value, and it is pride that makes us seek to be above others. The child who has no relations with others cannot have pride. He loves himself, and that is good. He does not compare himself to anyone, and that is better. But as soon as he begins to see others, as soon as he begins to feel their judgment, as soon as he begins to desire their esteem, he enters the world of passions and all the vices that accompany them. This is the danger of adolescence. The child who is content with himself now looks at others. He wants to be loved. He wants to be esteemed. He wants to be preferred. And if he cannot obtain these things by legitimate means, he will seek them by illegitimate ones. He will become a liar, a flatterer, a hypocrite. He will hide his true feelings. He will display false ones. He will cease to be himself, and he will become what the world wants him to be. The great task of education at this age is to prevent the birth of pride and to give birth to pity. Pity is the first sentiment of humanity that touches the human heart. It is pity that makes us identify with those who suffer. It is pity that makes us feel the pain of others as our own. It is pity that, by extending our love to our fellow beings, tempers the ferocity of self-love. How is pity born in the human heart? By imagination. The child who cannot imagine the sufferings of others cannot feel pity for them, but the adolescent, whose imagination is awakened, can put himself in the place of the sufferer. He can feel what the other feels. He can suffer with him. To cultivate pity in the heart of the young man, we must not show him only the rich and the powerful whom he may envy. We must show him the poor, the sick, the oppressed, whom he may pity. We must make him see that life is full of miseries, that no one is exempt from them, that he himself may one day suffer as they do. But this must not be done by speeches. It must be done by example, by experience. Let him see suffering with his own eyes. Let him hear the cries of the afflicted. Let him visit the hovels of the poor. Let him sit at the bedside of the sick. Let him hold the hand of the dying. Then, without a single word of moral instruction, his heart will be opened to pity. He will become humane, generous, compassionate. He will weep with those who weep, and he will learn to console them. It is at this age that the young man begins to read history. But history, as it is ordinarily written, is the worst of all lessons for him. Historians show us only the great events, the battles, the revolutions, the crimes. They show us men, but only in public, never in private. They show us the surface of things, never the depths. They flatter the powerful and despise the weak. They teach us to admire success and to despise misfortune. If you want your pupil to learn the true lessons of history, You must not give him the histories written by men. You must give him the lives of particular men. Plutarch, above all, is the historian for this age. Plutarch shows us the great men of antiquity in their private lives. He shows us their virtues and their vices, their strengths and their weaknesses. He makes them living beings, not abstract names. By reading Plutarch, the young man will learn to know men. He will learn to judge them not by their success, but by their character. He will learn to admire virtue, even when it is unfortunate. He will learn to despise vice, even when it is triumphant. And he will learn, above all, that the true greatness of man lies in the mastery of his passions, and not in the extent of his power. Fables are another means of instruction, but fables, as they are usually taught, are more harmful than useful. The child who reads the fable of the fox and the crow does not learn to despise flattery. He learns to be the fox. The child who reads the fable of the wolf and the lamb does not learn to hate oppression. He learns to be the wolf. Fables are not made for children. They are made for men. The child cannot understand the moral of the fable. He can only understand the story. And the story, without the moral, is often a lesson in vice rather than in virtue. If you want to use fables to instruct your pupil, you must wait until he is old enough to understand them. You must discuss them with him. You must make him see the moral for himself. And you must choose those fables that teach the simplest and most necessary truths: that the weak need protection, that the wicked are often punished, that honesty is the best policy. But the best fable of all is the one that is not written. It is the one that is lived. The young man who has been raised according to nature does not need fables to learn virtue. He has learned it from his own experience. He has learned that happiness comes from within, not from without. He has learned that the esteem of others is less precious than the esteem of oneself. He has learned that the only true riches are those of the heart. This is the age when the young man begins to feel the need of a companion. Until now, he has been sufficient to himself. He has lived alone with his tutor, with nature, with his books. But now his heart expands. He seeks a heart that can answer his. He seeks a soul that can understand his. He seeks a friend. But what is a friend? A friend is not someone who flatters us, who serves us, who amuses us. A friend is someone who loves us for ourselves, who tells us the truth, who helps us to become better. A friend is another self. The young man must learn to choose his friends. He must not give his heart to the first comer. He must observe. He must judge. He must wait. He must learn to distinguish the true friend from the false one. The true friend is rare. The false friend is everywhere. And the young man must also learn that friendship imposes duties. He must be faithful, discreet, generous. He must be ready to sacrifice his own interest for the sake of his friend. He must be ready to defend him, to console him, to counsel him. He must be ready to share his joys and his sorrows, his prosperity and his adversity. He must be ready, in a word, to treat his friend as himself. It is not enough to have shown the young man the miseries of others. He must also learn to know men. He must learn to see them as they are, not as they pretend to be. He must learn to penetrate the masks that society places on every face. He must learn to judge character, to discern motives, to distinguish the real from the apparent. This is the most difficult of all studies and the most necessary. The young man who enters the world without knowing men will be the dupe of every flatterer, the prey of every schemer, the victim of every vice. He will trust those who betray him and suspect those who love him. He will be alternately too credulous and too mistrustful. He will never find the just mean, because he will never have learned to judge men by their true worth. How shall we teach him this science? By experience and by reflection on experience. Let him go into the world. Let him see men in all their stations, the rich and the poor, the powerful and the weak, the learned and the ignorant. Let him see them in their pleasures and in their pains, in their triumphs and in their defeats. Let him see them when they are alone and when they are in company. Let him see them when they speak freely and when they are constrained by decorum. But do not let him go alone. Go with him, observe with him. After each encounter, after each visit, after each spectacle, reflect with him on what he has seen. Ask him what he thinks. Ask him what he feels. Ask him what he would do in the place of those he has seen. Make him compare the man of nature with the man of society. Make him see the distance between the two, and make him feel the price of the one and the vanity of the other. The first rule in the study of men is to observe them not by their words, but by their actions. Words are cheap. They cost nothing. They can be borrowed, imitated, counterfeited. But actions reveal the heart. The man who speaks of virtue may be a hypocrite. The man who acts virtuously is virtuous in spite of himself. The second rule is to observe men, not in their public roles, but in their private lives. The magistrate on his bench, the priest at his altar, the general at the head of his army, these are not men, they are actors. To know the man, you must see him in his family, with his friends, in his moments of leisure, when the mask falls and the true face appears. The third rule is to observe men not in prosperity, but in adversity. Prosperity corrupts judgment. It makes men proud, insolent, and false. Adversity restores them to themselves. It strips away the varnish of fortune and shows the naked soul. If you want to know a man, do not look at him when he is happy. Look at him when he suffers. Look at him when he has lost everything. Then you will see what he truly is. The young man must also learn to appreciate the beautiful, not the beautiful that is artificial, the beautiful of fashion and convention, but the beautiful that is natural, the beautiful that speaks to the heart. The taste for the beautiful is not a frivolous thing. It is intimately connected with morality. The man who loves what is truly beautiful will love what is truly good. The man who is moved by a noble landscape, by a just action, by a generous sentiment, has within him the seed of all virtues. How do we cultivate this taste? Not by rules, not by treatises on aesthetics, not by the study of the masters, but by exposure to beautiful things. Let the young man see beautiful paintings, but not too many, and not too soon. Let him hear beautiful music, but only when his heart is ready to feel it. Let him read beautiful poetry, but only that which speaks the language of nature. The first beauty that the young man should know is the beauty of nature itself. The mountains, the forests, the rivers, the sea, the rising and the setting of the sun, the starry sky on a clear night, the song of the birds at dawn, the silence of the desert. These are the spectacles that form the taste, that enlarge the soul, that prepare the heart for the great emotions. The young man who has learned to feel the beauty of nature will never be entirely vulgar. He will have within him a source of pure joy that nothing can corrupt. He will need no artificial pleasures. He will need no expensive entertainments. He will carry within himself the spectacle of the universe. It is also at this age that the first religious questions arise. The young man has seen the order of the universe. He has felt the beauty of nature. He has been moved by the spectacle of life. He asks, "Who made all this? What is the cause of this order? What is the source of this beauty?" These questions are natural. They arise from the heart, not from the mind. They are not the fruit of philosophical speculation. They are the fruit of sentiment. The young man does not yet reason about God. He feels God. He senses a presence, a power, a wisdom that surpasses his understanding. He sees design in the universe, and he infers a designer. He sees order, and he infers an intelligence. He sees goodness, and he infers a will that is good. Do not hurry to answer these questions. Do not impose on him a ready-made theology. Do not teach him the catechism of any church. Let him seek for himself. Let him feel for himself. Let him arrive at God by his own path. The God of nature speaks to the heart in a language that every man can understand. The God of the philosophers and the theologians speaks to the mind in a language that only the learned can comprehend. What must I say to him? What must I teach him? Nothing and everything. I must not teach him religion. I must lead him to find it. I must not give him a creed. I must give him the means to form his own. When he asks me who made the world, I will show him a flower, a bird, a star, and I will say, "Look." When he asks me, "What is the nature of God?" I will tell him that God is the author of all that is good, of all that is beautiful, of all that is true. When he asks me how to serve God, I will tell him that the best worship is a pure heart and a virtuous life. But I will not go further. I will not enter into disputes about doctrine. I will not speak to him of mysteries that he cannot understand. I will not demand that he believe what is beyond his reason. I will simply tell him what I feel, and I will let him feel for himself. This is the time when the young man must be prepared for the great revelation. He has learned the limits of his understanding. He has seen the beauty of the universe. He has felt the need for a first cause. He is ready for the profession of faith. But this profession must not come from me. It must come from another. It must come from a man who has suffered, who has doubted, who has sought, and who has found. It must come from a man who speaks not as a philosopher, but as a witness. It must come from a man whose words carry the weight of experience, not the authority of office. I have found such a man. He was a priest, but he was not proud. He was a Christian, but he was not intolerant. He had seen the corruption of the church, and he had not abandoned his faith. He had suffered persecution, and he had not become bitter. He was a man of simple faith, of pure morals, of enlightened conscience. I shall let him speak. I shall give you his words as he gave them to me, in the solitude of the mountains, with no other witness than the sky above and the earth below. Listen to the profession of faith of the Savoyard vicar. My child, do not expect from me either learned speeches or profound reasonings. I am not a great philosopher, and I care little about being one. But I sometimes have good sense, and I always love the truth. I do not wish to argue with you, nor even to try to convince you. It is enough for me to show you what I think, in all simplicity of heart. Consult your own heart while I speak to you. That is all I ask of you. I was born a poor peasant, and I was destined by my condition to live and die in obscurity. But a kindly priest, who was the pastor of my village, took me under his protection. He taught me what he knew, and he inspired in me a taste for virtue and for the truth. I became a priest myself, and I exercised my ministry for some years with as much zeal as I was capable of. But I soon discovered that in accepting the duties of the priesthood, I had committed myself to obligations that I could not fulfill. I was told to preach the faith, but I did not know what the faith was. I was told to administer the sacraments, but I did not understand their meaning. I was told to guide the consciences of men, but I did not know how to guide my own. In my perplexity, I began to study. I read the scriptures, I read the fathers, I read the theologians, I read the philosophers, and the more I read, the more confused I became. I found the scriptures full of mysteries that I could not comprehend. I found the fathers contradicting one another. I found the theologians lost in subtleties that had no relation to human life. I found the philosophers disputing about everything and agreeing on nothing. At last I said to myself, what is the use of all this study? If the truth were made for us, why can we not grasp it by our natural faculties? If God wants us to know the truth, why has He hidden it in books that only the learned can read and that the learned themselves cannot understand? I resolved to seek the truth no longer in books, but in myself. I resolved to consult my own reason, my own conscience, my own heart. I resolved to accept only those truths that presented themselves to me with irresistible evidence. And I resolved to reject everything else without worrying about the opinions of others. This was the revolution that took place in my mind. I renounced the authority of men. I submitted myself to the authority of God alone. I became, in the strict sense of the word, a philosopher, that is, a lover of wisdom. And I sought wisdom not in the systems of men, but in the light of my own understanding. The first truth that struck me, the most evident of all truths, is that I exist. I think, therefore I am. This is a truth that no skeptic has ever been able to shake. It is the foundation of all knowledge, the starting point of all philosophy. The second truth that I perceived is that there is something outside of me. I am not the whole of existence. I am surrounded by objects that affect my senses, that resist my will, that exist independently of me. I do not create them, I perceive them. They are not me, they are other than me. But what are these objects? What is the nature of the world that surrounds me? I see matter, extended, solid, divisible, in motion or at rest. But matter itself, taken in itself, is inert, passive, incapable of moving itself. Whence comes its motion? Whence comes the order that I observe in it? I see the stars turning in their orbits. I see the seasons succeeding one another. I see the plants growing, the animals moving, the whole universe animated with life and activity. This motion, this order, this life, they must have a cause. And this cause cannot be matter itself, for matter is passive. It must be a will that moves matter, an intelligence that orders it. Thus I am compelled to recognize the existence of a supreme being, who wills, who acts, who is intelligent, who is powerful, who is good. I call this being God. I do not pretend to know the essence of God. I do not know what He is in Himself, but I know that He is, and I know that He is the cause of all that is. I know that the universe is governed by His laws, and that everything that happens by His will. But if God is good, as I believe, why is there evil in the world? Why do the just suffer? Why do the wicked prosper? Why is there pain, disease, death? To these questions I have no answer. But the absence of an answer does not destroy the evidence of the question. I see order in the universe. I conclude that there is an intelligence. I see goodness in the design of nature. I conclude that there is a good will. I cannot explain the exceptions, but the rule is clear. Perhaps the evil that I see is only apparent. Perhaps it is necessary for a greater good that I cannot see. Perhaps the universe is larger than my understanding, and my complaints are like those of a child who cries because he does not understand the medicine that heals him. I do not know. I am content to believe that God is just, and that my soul is immortal. For if God is just, the wicked must be punished, and the good rewarded. But this does not happen in this life. Therefore there must be another life, where justice will be done. But what am I? What is the nature of the being that thinks, that wills, that feels, that calls itself I? Am I only matter, organized in a certain way, capable of certain functions? Or is there in me a principle that is distinct from matter, a soul, a spirit, a substance that thinks and wills? I observe that matter is extended, divisible, inert. I observe that thought is not extended, not divisible, not inert. Thought does not occupy space. Thought cannot be divided into parts. Thought is active, not passive. How could matter produce thought if thought has none of the properties of matter? If the soul were material, it would perish with the body. But I do not see any necessary connection between the dissolution of the body and the destruction of the thinking principle. The body is a machine that wears out. The soul is a principle that acts. When the machine is broken, the principle may continue to exist. I believe, therefore, that the soul is immortal. I believe that it survives the body, and that it will be judged by God according to its works. This belief is not a certainty. It is a hope, a persuasion, a sentiment, but it is a sentiment that is dear to my heart, and I will not renounce it for any arguments of the philosophers. If I am mistaken, my error is my consolation. If I am right, my faith is my salvation. But what is the rule of my conduct? What is the principle that must guide my actions? Is it reason? Reason is often uncertain. It can be deceived. It can be corrupted by the passions. Is it the custom of my country? Custom varies from nation to nation. What is virtue in one place is vice in another. Is it the authority of men? Every man claims authority, and no two agree. There is, however, an infallible guide which never deceives us, which always speaks the truth, which is the same in all times and in all places. This guide is conscience. Conscience is the voice of God in the soul. It is the instinct of the moral life. It is the innate principle of justice and virtue. It is by conscience that we judge our own actions and the actions of others and find them good or evil. I do not need to be taught the principles of morality. I find them written in my heart. I have only to consult myself in the silence of the passions, and I know what I ought to do. To do good is to follow conscience. To do evil is to resist it. Conscience does not deceive us. It is the true guide of man. It is to the soul what instinct is to the body. He who follows conscience obeys nature and need not fear going astray. But if conscience speaks to all men, why do they not all hear it? Why is there so much wickedness in the world? Because conscience speaks to us in the language of nature, and we have forgotten that language. Because we have stifled the voice of nature under the noise of our passions, under the sophisms of our reason, under the prejudices of our education. Conscience is timid. It loves retreat and peace. The world and its noise frighten it. The prejudices that have been instilled in us are its cruelest enemies. It flees or is silent before them. Its voice is stifled by the clamor of the world, and it can no longer make itself heard. But let a man withdraw into himself, let him silence his passions, let him forget the maxims of society, and he will hear the voice of conscience, clear, distinct, imperious. He will know what is good and what is evil, without the help of any book, without the teaching of any master. This, my child, is the religion of nature. It is the religion that God Himself has engraved on the human heart. It does not depend on revelations, on miracles, on dogmas, on priests. It depends only on the light of reason and the voice of conscience. Do not ask me whether there are other religions, whether other forms of worship are acceptable to God. I do not know. I know only that the true worship is the worship of the heart. God asks for no ceremonies, no sacrifices, no offerings. He asks only for a pure heart and a life of virtue. If you believe what I have said to you, you will be a good man, a just man, a man of peace. You will love God not with a servile fear, but with a filial love. You will love your neighbor as yourself, because you will see in him the image of the same God, the work of the same Creator. This is all the religion that I profess. It is the only religion that I can understand, and the only one that I can practice. If I am wrong, God will judge me with mercy, not with rigor. For my error, if it is one, is not the fruit of pride or rebellion, but of a sincere desire to know the truth and to serve God according to the light that He has given me. The profession of faith of the Savoyard vicar is not a model to be followed, nor a catechism to be memorized. It is an example of how one man, in the simplicity of his heart, sought the truth for himself. I do not require my pupil to believe everything the vicar believes. I require only that he seek the truth with the same sincerity, and that he follow his own conscience wherever it may lead him. After having heard the words of the vicar, Emile remained silent for a long time. I did not question him. I did not press him to speak. I wanted the impression made on his soul to sink deep into it. I wanted the seed we had planted to germinate in silence. At last he raised his eyes to me and said, "You have shown me the God of nature. I feel Him. I love Him. But what are all the religions of men? Why are there so many churches, so many sects, so many dogmas? Which is the true one?" I answered him, "My child, I do not know. The true religion is written in your heart. The rest is the work of men. God asks only that you be just and good. The ceremonies, the formulas, the creeds, these are the inventions of priests. They have their use, perhaps, for those who cannot rise to the contemplation of the divine essence. But for you, who have been raised according to nature, the simplest worship is the best. Love God and love your neighbor. That is the whole of the law. But," he said, "if I marry, if I have children, what religion shall I teach them? You will teach them the religion of nature. You will teach them to love God and to love virtue. You will not bind them to any particular church, but you will leave them free to choose when they are old enough to choose for themselves." We have now reached the end of the 4th book. Emile is no longer a child. He is a young man, fully formed in body, enlightened in mind, and sensitive in heart. He knows what is good. He loves what is beautiful. He is ready for the great passion of his life. But where shall he find the companion who is worthy of him? Shall I choose her for him? Shall I let him find her himself? Neither the one nor the other. I have already chosen her. I have given her the name of Sophie. She exists, she lives, she is waiting for him. But I will not tell him where she is, nor who she is. He must find her himself, or rather he must be led to her without knowing that he is being led. For love, to be truly sweet, must be mixed with obstacles. The heart must be prepared by longing. The prize must be earned by effort. If I simply presented Sophie to Emile and said, "Here is your wife," he would accept her without joy and possess her without gratitude. But if he must travel to find her, if he must overcome difficulties, if he must prove himself worthy of her, then his love will be all the sweeter for the trouble it has cost him. We must now speak of Sophie and of the education of women. But before we enter upon that subject, let me say a word about the education of taste. Emile has learned to feel the beautiful in nature. Now he must learn to feel it in art. But he must not approach art as a connoisseur, as a critic, as a judge. He must approach it as a lover. He must seek in art not the approval of others, but the enlargement of his own soul. What art shall I show him? First, the art of poetry. Homer, above all. The simplicity, the grandeur, the humanity of the ancient bard. There is no other poet who speaks so directly to the heart of man. Then the art of music. Not the complicated music of the moderns, but the simple melodies of the ancients, of the people, of the countryside. Music that speaks, that moves, that consoles. Then the art of painting. Not the grandiose historical canvases, but the simple, truthful representations of nature and of human life. In all these things the rule is the same. Seek the true, the simple, the natural. Flee the artificial, the affected, the exaggerated. The beautiful is never far from the good. The taste for the one is inseparable from the love of the other. Now let us speak of love. Emile has reached the age when the heart opens to the tender passions. He has felt pity, he has felt friendship, he is ready to feel love. But love is a dangerous passion. It can elevate the soul to the sublime, it can drag it down to the abject. It can make a man a hero, it can make him a slave. How shall we guide Emile through this perilous passage? Not by forbidding him to love, but by teaching him to love rightly. The first love must be the love of virtue. Before he loves a woman, he must love what is good and beautiful. The woman he loves must be, in his eyes, the incarnation of virtue. If she is not virtuous, he will not love her long. If she is virtuous, his love for her will make him more virtuous still. The second rule is this: do not hurry the heart. Let love come in its own time. The young man who rushes into love before he knows what he seeks will be disappointed and corrupted. Let him wait. Let him be difficult to please. Let him seek not the first woman who smiles at him, but the one who is truly worthy of him. The third rule is this: let love be mixed with respect. The man who loves without respect loves only himself. The man who respects the object of his love will never dishonor her. He will seek her happiness, not his own pleasure. He will be patient, gentle, faithful, because he sees in her not a means to his satisfaction, but an end in herself. And where shall Emile find this Sophie? I have said that she exists. I have said that she is waiting for him. But I have also said that he must seek her. We shall travel. We shall leave the city and go into the countryside. We shall visit the villages, the farms, the country houses. We shall seek a young woman who is not beautiful by the standards of the world, but who is beautiful by the standards of nature. She will be simple in her dress, modest in her manners, gentle in her speech. She will not be learned, but she will have good sense. She will not be witty, but she will be wise. She will not dazzle the eye, but she will touch the heart. She will be, in a word, a woman who has been raised to be a woman, and not to be a doll, a coquette, or a philosopher. When Emile sees her, he will know her. He will feel in the depth of his soul that this is the one for whom he was made. And she, if she has been raised as she should be, will feel the same. But I must not tell him this beforehand. I must not describe her to him, lest he imagine her everywhere and fall in love with a phantom. Let him see her for himself. Let him discover her for himself. The moment of recognition will be all the sweeter for not having been prepared. In the meantime, let us speak of Sophie. Sophie means wisdom. She is well named. She has the wisdom of her sex, which is not the wisdom of books, but the wisdom of the heart. She knows how to govern a household, how to raise children, how to make a man happy. She does not know the names of the stars, but she knows how to read the character of those she meets. She cannot recite the maxims of the philosophers, but she lives according to principles that are truer than theirs. Her education has been the opposite of Emile's. He was raised in freedom. She was raised in constraint. He was taught to think for himself. She was taught to obey. He was exercised in the open air. She was kept in the house. He was encouraged to ask questions. She was taught to be silent. And yet, they are made for each other. Why is this? Because nature has made man and woman different. Their duties are different. Their virtues must be different. Man is made to act. Woman is made to be patient. Man is made to command. Woman is made to obey. But this obedience is not servitude. It is a willing submission, born of love, sustained by respect. The man who truly loves his wife does not need to command her. She anticipates his wishes. She makes his happiness her own. She is the heart of the household, the guardian of the domestic virtues, the consoler of his sorrows, the sharer of his joys. Such is Sophie. Such is the woman for whom Emile was born. Impu 5. Sophie, or the woman. We have arrived at the last act of the drama. Emile is a man. His companion must be a woman. She must be what he needs, as he must be what she needs. The laws of nature, the laws of love, the laws of society, all must be harmonized in their union. Sophie is the name I have given to the woman who is destined for Emile. But where is she? What is she like? How has she been raised? What is the education of women according to nature? These are the questions that remain to be examined, and they are the most delicate of all. Sophie must be a woman as Emile is a man. That is to say, she must have all the qualities that suit her nature and her station. She must be made to please as man is made to be strong. She must be made to obey as man is made to command. This is not a prejudice of society. It is the law of nature. Woman is made to please man. This is her primary duty. She must make herself agreeable to him, not by coquetry or artifice, but by the natural graces of her sex. She must be gentle, modest, patient, attentive, and faithful. She must know how to govern a household, to raise children, to console a husband, to make his home a place of peace and happiness. But if woman is made to please, she must also be strong. She must have the strength to bear pain, to endure hardship, to resist temptation. She must have the courage to suffer and the dignity to forgive. She must be the guardian of morals, the keeper of the domestic sanctuary, the first teacher of her children. The education of Sophie must therefore be the opposite of Emile's in many respects, but identical in one. It must follow nature. Sophie's body must be developed as well as her mind. She must be active, graceful, and healthy. She must learn to dance, to sing, to move with ease and elegance. She must not be confined to a chair, bent over a piece of embroidery, ruining her eyes and her posture. She must run, she must play, she must laugh. Her body must be free, because only a free body can house a free soul. But her mind must be cultivated in a different way from that of man. Man needs to know the truth in all its rigor. Woman needs to know the truth in all its sweetness. Man must learn to reason. Woman must learn to feel. Man must seek knowledge for its own sake. Woman must seek it for the sake of her duties. I would not teach Sophie philosophy. I would not give her books of science or treatises of logic. She does not need them. What she needs is to know the human heart, to understand the passions, to foresee their effects, to calm their storms. She needs to know how to govern herself, so that she may one day govern her household. She will learn these things not from books, but from conversation, from observation, from reflection on what she sees and hears. Her mother will be her first teacher, as nature is the first teacher of man. She will learn modesty from her mother, and from her father the respect that is due to the head of the family. Sophie must also have religion, but her religion must be simple, like her soul. She must not be a theologian. She must not dispute about dogmas. She must not read the Fathers or the Councils. Her religion is the religion of the heart, the same that the Savoyard vicar professed. She believes in God because she feels Him. She loves God because He is good. She hopes for immortality because the injustices of this world demand a future life. But there is one point on which her religion differs from that of man. Woman's faith must be the faith of her husband, not because she must renounce her reason, but because the harmony of the household requires unity of belief. If she marries a man of a different religion, she must adopt his, provided it is sincere. For the wife who disputes with her husband about the nature of God will soon dispute with him about everything else, and the peace of the home will be destroyed. This may seem unjust, but it is the law of nature. Man is made to lead, woman is made to follow. If she follows him in what is true, she will be happy. If she resists him, she will be miserable. And the children, seeing their parents divided, will grow up without faith, without morals, without peace. Sophie has all the charms of her sex. She is not beautiful, but she is pleasing. Her face is not striking, but it touches the heart. She has a gentle voice, a modest look, a smile that inspires tenderness. She is not learned, but she has good sense. She is not witty, but she speaks well. She does not reason like a philosopher, but she judges like a woman of good judgment. She loves order and cleanliness. Her room is simple but well kept. Her dress is modest but becoming. She does not follow the fashions, but she knows how to wear what suits her. She does not adorn herself to be seen, but to please the one she loves. Her greatest charm is her modesty. She does not blush because she is ashamed. She blushes because she is sensitive. She knows the value of her virtue, and she guards it with care. She does not flee from men, but she does not seek them out. She waits for the one who is worthy of her, and she will give herself to him entirely, but only after she has received his vow. Now, How shall Emile and Sophie meet? I have already said they must travel. They must leave Paris, the city of noise and corruption. They must go into the countryside where the air is pure and the people are simple. They must seek Sophie among the fields and the woods, not in the drawing rooms of the capital. And when they find her, what then? Emile will not know at first that this is Sophie. I will not tell him. I will let him observe her, speak to her, come to know her by degrees. I will let his heart be touched before his mind understands why. For love to be truly sweet must be a discovery. It must be a surprise. It must be a revelation. The first meeting will be simple. They will see each other at a country house, or at a village festival, or walking along a lane. They will not speak much at first. They will observe each other. Emile will see a young woman who is modest, who is gentle, who is unlike the women of the city. He will feel a strange emotion, an emotion he has never felt before. Sophie, for her part, will see a young man who is strong, who is honest, who is natural. She will see that he respects her, that he does not flatter her, that he does not pretend. She will feel, perhaps, a stirring in her heart, but she will not show it. She will wait. I will let them meet again and again. Each time, their affection will grow. They will talk. They will walk together. They will begin to know each other. And one day, Emile will come to me and say, "There is the woman I love. There is the woman I wish to marry." Then I will say to him, "Are you sure? Have you examined your heart? Is she what you want? Is she what you need? Is she worthy of you? Are you worthy of her?" He will answer, "Yes." And I will say, "Then go and ask her father, and if he consents, and if she consents, you shall marry." But before the marriage, there is one more lesson that Emile must learn. He must learn what it is to be a husband and a father. He must learn that liberty does not end with marriage. It is transformed. The married man is no longer alone. His duties are doubled. His joys are shared. He must provide for his family. He must protect them. He must guide them. And he must love his wife, not as a possession, but as a companion. Sophie, for her part, must learn that her obedience is not servitude, but a willing submission to the man she loves. She must learn to govern the household, to manage the servants, to raise the children with patience and wisdom. She must learn that her greatest glory is to make her husband happy, and her greatest happiness is to see her children grow in virtue. At last the day of the marriage arrives. It is not a grand ceremony. It is not a display of wealth. It is a simple exchange of vows made before nature, before God, and before the witnesses of their love. Emile takes Sophie by the hand and leads her to the altar. He places a ring on her finger. He says, "I take you as my wife. I will love you, I will honor you, I will protect you all the days of my life. You are my companion, my friend, my equal. Without you, I am nothing. With you, I am everything." Sophie, weeping with joy, replies, "I take you as my husband. I will love you, I will serve you, I will obey you all the days of my life. You are my master, my protector, my king. Without you, I am lost. With you, I am found." Then I, their old master, bless them and embrace them. And I say to them, My children, you are now one. Go and live according to nature. Be happy, be good, be free. And remember that the greatest of all goods is not riches, nor glory, nor power, but the love of a faithful heart and the peace of a virtuous soul. That is the end. Emile, or On Education, by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, 1762, complete. And what has happened here? A man who gave away his own children sat down and wrote the greatest treatise on education in the history of the West. He imagined a pupil, Emile, and raised him from birth to manhood according to the laws of nature. The infant freed from swaddling clothes, the child learning through things, not books, the pre-adolescent discovering the sciences by experiment, the adolescent awakening to pity, friendship, and the first stirrings of love, the young man finding God in the voice of conscience, and at last the husband wed to Sophie, the wise one, the woman raised to be a woman. The book that was burned and banned became the foundation of modern progressive education. Its vision of the natural child, the negative education, the sovereignty of conscience, these have never ceased to provoke, to inspire, and to endure. I am Jamil, and this is the Classic Mind. Emile, or On Education, by Jean-Jacques Rousseau,